I'm Vinciane Rycroft from Mind with Heart. I'm one of the co-founders of the Mind with Heart education charity who's organized this conference. And we're very delighted to have you here this afternoon. Thank you for coming. So welcome for this first public sector conference on empathy and compassion. Welcome on behalf of the many partners who've supported this conference. We will tell you more about them later. They're led in particular by the Tenzin Gyatso Institute, Tenzin Gyatso being the name of the Dalai Lama. So the question we will seek to answer this afternoon is whether we can cultivate compassion towards ourselves, towards others, and to what effect in a professional setting. Today, we are going to hear from remarkable scientists and change makers in the fields of education, health, social care, policy, and management. So today, we're going to hear from these amazing people. Tomorrow, we're going to continue, but it's going to be more of a discussion. We're going to have workshops, we're going to have roundtables, we're going to have questions. We're really going to explore these questions. So for today, we are not going to take any questions, but we will have time in the breaks to continue the debate. The idea for the conference came from a discussion I personally had with a colleague from the healthcare sector. A colleague, Jan, who is right here, who you will see throughout this conference, from the spiritual care program. We were discussing the need for a better understanding of the role of compassion in society. You hear the many debates, in fact it was on television this morning, about the importance of not just having targets, but actually caring for people. This is a very hot debate in the healthcare field. It's also an important debate in the education sector and in many other sectors. So this is why we've decided to organize a cross-sector conference, and we hope you will particularly enjoy this aspect of this conference. Another key motivation for this event was to actually allow young people to interact with the amazing speakers that we've gathered today. And we thought, well, if we ask these people to come and speak to a bunch of teenagers, so we're talking about scientists from the US, from Tel Aviv, from Germany, from all over the UK, they're never going to come. So why don't we organize a proper conference? They'll come for that. And then we'll just do a youth event the day before. So that's what we did. We had a fabulous event yesterday with 300 teenagers in the London South Bank Centre, and they had an extremely good time. Actually, young people really engage with all the topics we're going to be engaging with today. So well-being, compassion, science, many, many things. So now I'd like to hand over to David Rand, who's got a very special message for us from the Tenzin Gyatso Institute.
Hello. We're really honored that we received a message from His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, on behalf of this conference that I'd like to share with you. I believe empathy and compassion are the source of all happiness and success. We human beings are social animals. We depend on each other for our very survival. Of course, we have a natural inclination to pursue our own self-interest. But the key point here is to do so wisely rather than foolishly. What we need to do is to cultivate a warm-hearted concern for the happiness and welfare of others. Values such as love and compassion are encouraged in all of the major religious traditions, but are no means confined to them. This is a matter of human relations. You don't need to be religious to develop love and compassion for others. This is why, I believe, in our increasingly interdependent world, in this 21st century, we need a secular approach to human values. Where do we start? I believe we can begin by acknowledging that everyone we meet, work, and interact with is a human being just like us. Someone who, like us, wants to find happiness and does not seek problems. This is what we have in common. Other differences related to where we come from, our nationality, faith, or level of education, whether we are rich or poor, young or old, are secondary distinctions. Focusing on them is a cause of division, creating a sense of them and us. Much more important is to think of us all as part of the greater us, the human family. I send my greetings to everyone participating in this conference with my prayers that your discussions and meetings may be fruitful, leading to practical measures that can be adopted to create a happier, more compassionate society. His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Now, facilitating also this afternoon is Roger Grafe. He is a world-renowned, award-winning film director who specializes in criminology. And Roger, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks very much. Thank you for including me in this amazing conference. I went to the youth conference yesterday and was just moved all the way through it. And when I tried to explain it to anybody else, of course, I broke into tears, which was a little disconcerting in the settings of, a Thanksgiving party and so on, where people weren't expecting somebody just to come in and break down and tell amazing stories. But they were so moving, and I hope you'll be in for the same kind of experience that I had. I also need your compassion and empathy, as you can hear from my voice. I developed a sore throat overnight, and I hope that I won't suffer too much in doing this. But what I wanted to talk about was this, because I don't know how many of you might have seen my films, but a most recent film about a month ago was called Who Cares on ITV, about the elderly, about neglect of the elderly. Not abuse, because that's against the law and gets arrested and creates scandals, but neglect, a sort of pattern of neglect. And we did criticize the CQC for being much too slow in responding, so this morning's news was very, very interesting about the failure to pay respect to the elderly. That's the particular kind of empathy and compassion that we were looking at. And it's not the sort of thing that normally makes films or television or the news. And the previous films that you might have seen, we did Kids in Care and The Truth About Adoption. And in both cases, we followed 5 or 6 children over 6 to 8 months. And we're very close to their dilemmas and their experiences. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because thanks to the Twitter feed, we could actually watch the way people were responding to this. And although Olga has this very interesting experiment, which she'll tell you about, and other kinds of ways of looking at film and what happens to your brain, while watching sort of short bursts of, that was an earthquake victim, wasn't it, that you showed us yesterday. But these are an hour-long immersion in the lives of people who are otherwise invisible. And what's really interesting from the Twitter feed is the way in which people are saying, these are just sort of samples, I can't bear to watch this, it's too painful. Or, I never realized that I wanted to adopt, but I do. And then I couldn't possibly be a social worker, say some people it's too painful. Others say, I'm going to sign up tomorrow to be a social worker. But the point about all of these, and in fact, I'll just briefly, from the adoption film, all the websites of adoption agencies crashed that night with people applying to adopt, all of them. And David Cameron saw it on the air and said, the next day, I'm going to speed up the adoption process. Now, why I'm telling you this is that you've got, and a lot of you are, professionals here, but it is also possible to reach people as long as the film, through television and respectful films and television. And finally, the last example I want to give you, because it's relevant for the agenda today, is about Great Ormond Street. I don't know if any of you saw, we did 9 films in Great Ormond Street. But the image of professional doctors and nurses is always heroic in the conventional documentaries and Casualty and the other fictional versions. What we were able to persuade the consultants to do, and they're the best in the world, was to share the dilemmas